Carol Chiang, welcome to Love Your Money.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Wow. So tell me, how do you end up, give us the Reader's Digest version, how you end up doing what you do?
How do I end up doing what I do? So, I am an occupational therapist by training,
Hmm.
and my favorite thing to do is to work with people in the home. So, I got started doing home health, that traditional rehab kind of stuff. And 15 years ago, Medicare was still, supporting aging in place, and being able to have care in the home is cheaper than being able to take care of someone in inpatient rehab. Inpatient rehab, you're looking at $1,500 a day. At the home, they were thinking, hey, we have visiting nurses, maybe a few hundred. So we never had any kind of stipulations against how many visits you could have. As long as somebody was making progress and we could document it, we were good to go. So I saw
Hmm.
stroke patients 3 times a week, 6 months. I got to see them going from complete paralysis to writing a note to their friends. So you got to see that entire spectrum. I could be there to help them order equipment and help them go through that painful process of teaching them how to dress with one arm. And it takes months, but I got to see that whole process. And maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody upstairs realized that we were going to run out of money. So, and what happens when
I
you
keep
start to
hearing that.
and what happens when people start to run out of money? They panic, right? And they panic and they start going like, that's it, moratorium on spending. We're not doing this and that. And what that translates to for healthcare professionals is an increase in justification of services. So you need to complete this checklist, and this person needs to look at less visits. And really, for me, the breaking point got to a point where they had put the whole burden on home care agencies and said, look, like, we're going to give you a bucket of money, and you are going to have to take care of this patient for this bucket of money, no matter what what that you think that they would need, because they don't have a caregiver or their home
Oh,
situation is
wow.
different. Okay. So, they had basically, the home health agencies had figured out that 20 visits was their break even point. So 20 visits need to be shared between the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, the nurse, speech therapy, and if they were going to have respiratory. And if you do the
Oh,
math, right, it's
no.
not very nice. So and another cost cutting measure in that was decreasing the assistance, so having assistants do it. Long story short, I said that's enough of this terrible care. I am not going to
Yeah.
treat a full hemi stroke like this with 2 visits or 4 visits or whatever. There's no progress possible. Even if patients can't will have to pay for my services out of pocket, so be it. At least that there's that possibility, because by that point, Medicare had said, we're not paying for anything that a caregiver could do on their own, i.e., ordering things on Amazon, helping them with like figuring out an install process, or all of those small things that really make it easier for them to manage at home better. So
Hmm.
that's how I started, really focusing on in the home, aging in place. So, either the hospital to home transitions, or more importantly, those proactive adults who are the ones answering AARP surveys saying, hey, look, I'm one of the 9 out of 10 that plans to age in place, but I have no idea what I need to do or how to get ready for this.
So what does it mean? Oh man, 9 out of 10. Yes. So we need to circle
Nine
back
out
to
of
that.
10.
Yes, I know. You hear it all the time. And sometimes it comes down to, well, what are you actually able to do? So it breaks my heart when people aren't able to do that for whatever reason. But we'll come back to that. What is it to age in place? And how is what you do? I imagine because of you're trying to help people avoid the outcome you just described, that part of what you do is preventative consultative. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So aging in place is that purposeful decision that you are going to stay in your own home as you get older. So
Mhm.
that you aren't just going to go by the wind and, whatever happens, happens. Okay. So you are deciding that this is the place that I'm going to stay, and I'm going to get older here.
Mhm.
Preventative is super important, because one of the biggest problems I find is it's really hard for us to imagine ourselves any different than we are right now. So
Right.
and I suspect that one of the reasons that people think that my plan is to age in place here is just because that's the default plan. I'm currently here, right? I don't have to do anything, and I'll just stay here. That's my plan, right? Is that really a plan? It's not really a plan if you're not considering the idea that you're going to be 20 years old or 30 years older. There's a
That's
real thing
called
called
the inertia plan.
right? The I don't do anything and hope for the best plan. Like,
Right.
that's an accident waiting to happen. But I try to remind people that there is a real thing called sarcopenia. Aging is not a disease, aging is a process. And
Yes.
sarcopenia is that loss of muscle mass, half a pound of muscle mass, and you gaining 2 pounds of fat every single year after 35 as a natural part of your aging process, right? So do the math, right? You lose that much muscle in a certain amount of years. After a couple decades, your function is going to be affected, and that's
Right.
normal. But it's not necessarily that it is inevitable. So these are all preventable things, but preventable things in a way that some people don't love. So things like exercise or eating right or sleeping better or, taking their meds on time or keeping a routine that seems boring. So, and
Hmm.
I'll tell you, I have a lot of people who say at 65, listen, that's it. I got up at 5:30 in the morning every morning for work for 40 years. From now on, I'm sleeping until noon. I'm going to eat what I want and I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. And unfortunately, those are the ones who 5 to 10 years later
That's the
are
wrong
on
time
my
of life to
schedule.
be doing that. Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking, is this really how you wanted to spend that retirement? I understand you want to do something different, but be kind to yourself and try to think about how could I create a better quality of life, not number of years of life, right?
Hmm. And so I think most people imagine the fork in the road. So I'm in my home and maybe I've done normal disability accommodations. I've got handles in my shower, but let's say I fall and I have a hip injury. And now I think most people relate to it like my options are to bring in round the clock in-home care. So that's eight or 3 8-hour shifts a day. So, you're paying three full-time professionals. I've heard people quote this, or I'm going to go to a care facility like an old people's home. Can you add some nuance to that? What are the other options? Talk about someone in that position.
Totally. So, especially if you're talking about a sudden fall, this is generally the wake up call. So, I said, most people can't imagine themselves at that point. The wake up
Hmm.
call will often happen with something as small as tripping over your garden hose. So, you walk outside and oops, like the grandkids pulled the hose over, you didn't realize, and boom, there you go. And there's your first fall, right? And yes, so you could hire somebody 24/7, but currently there is a serious caregiver shortage. Care is
Yeah,
expensive, and that is one of those sticker shock problems that people get. So, um, most people, it's in the $20,000 a month zone.
right.
That's shocking for people to digest. And if you try to multiply that by multiple months, I mean, it's a lot. Okay. So, um, going to a care facility for a little while, that is just to get stronger. That totally works. But I try to send the message of how about we just rewind the whole situation? And if you stayed really strong and you invested your time, money, and energy into a personal trainer, into
I
having,
see.
those good, a nutritionist, somebody,
An
those
active
people who can
lifestyle.
yes, people who can support you in creating a situation where you don't even need to go down the 240K a year zone, or you
Right.
don't even necessarily need the grab bars. I mean, I don't see this as a continuum of you get older, you learn to walk, you go to college, and then as you get older, you go from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. I mean, that's not how this works, right? Like you don't have to do that. That is not a given. That is one of those things that people think is a continuum of life, but it's not. You can absolutely be starting at 35 to figure out your routines, get stronger, get into better habits, figure out, what it is that you like to do, right? The best exercise is the one you'll do. I don't care what it is. You just have to figure out what
Just
you can
move.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, please just do something because any amount of strength that you're maintaining is money that you're saving on the back end. And that's money that you're not paying for, expensive care, which is crazy, but also the home modification piece in it. Of course, like I love, super accessible spaces, just like a hospital, nice big open areas where you could move a wheelchair if you wanted to, or just feel free to ambulate in a walker and feel safe, right?
Hmm.
But that's expensive stuff. I mean, especially these days, at post-COVID, the materials costs, the labor costs, they jumped like crazy. I would guess
Did they?
almost in the doubling. Yeah. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean, I used to be able to build a bathroom for 35,000. full gut. And now, I mean, I just recently did one where it wasn't even a full gut and it was 70,000. And we did
Wow.
our due diligence. We interviewed, I work for the client. I do not work for the contractors or anything. I am on the call with them. We interviewed together 6 different guys, and all of them had the same cost. Okay, so it's
Wow.
just what the market will bear. And you don't want to do that. You want to have more control over your life, and you can do that by being proactive and really, you know, taking those pieces and understanding, okay, what am I like? What do I want my future to look like? And how do I make sure I save for it? And how do I make sure I know what the options are for it?
So then at what age are you recommending people make accommodative remodeling changes to their home? What do those look like?
Yep. So, you know what? I tell people when you buy your first house, you should be thinking about it. And not necessarily that you're going to live in that house, but that every remodel, every routine remodel that you would do, that ugly pink bathroom has got to go when you bought that house, right? You knew that. So, when those walls are down, you put up the lumber, you put up the backing so that you could throw grab bars on that wall at any time. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's for grandma who comes over to stay with you because she happened to buy a 2-story townhome, and that maybe wasn't the best downsizing idea, but that you have the potential to do that later on. And it's so much cheaper to do then. And there are so many reasons for it that even beyond your own benefit. Like if you look right now at the housing in the US, only less than 5% are even mobility friendly. 1%, less than 1% is wheelchair friendly. Less than
Right.
5% is mobility friendly. So, and if you look at that math, that means that if 90% of people are planning to stay in place, 95% of homes need to be adjusted, right?
And it
And
sounds
that's
like
a
they're in the six figures of
Oh my gosh.
costs.
And it's expensive. And forget about the cost. Think about the hassle. Like the contractors coming in and of your house, the dust, the not being able to use everything, all the appliances are in a weird place. I mean, it's not something that is a fun thing for older people to have to go through and have to tolerate all at once. So if you can do all these things when you start, and if you are young and you are going ahead and making those changes, even if you sell that house later, that's social responsibility. You are helping the next person who buys that house, or even adding back to the housing pool of homes that could be accessible for somebody who really does need those accommodations.
So you're really a kind of more of an activist. You really want home builders to
I
build with this kind of thing in mind. And I'm sitting here thinking nobody thinks anything about, oh, your friend is coming over with her baby, and we immediately baby proof the living room. And yet we don't do that for grandma and grandpa,
Right. Well,
right?
and you know what? They can't get to your living room if they can't get into your house. And I have this video of my sister. She has a house in Toronto, and they've got 4 big giant steps. And you can see her just hauling her 2-year-old inside of this stroller, just bumping up these steps. And it is
Yeah.
so dangerous. I mean, I'm looking at that going, my back hurts watching you. Never mind if you hurt yourself and you are now trying to take care of a child. I mean, the
Right.
consequences are enormous for this. So yeah, it is about babies. It's about visitability. It's also for you. What about the new furniture that you're bringing in? Those poor guys who are lugging things like up those steps. Don't you feel bad for them as they're coming up there?
I
Like
do every time.
it's horrible. It's horrible.
uh, okay, so in a perfect world, then Um, I mean, the housing exists how it exists. So at what age or what phase of life should someone start paying attention to your kind of messaging for and how should they think about it as being for themselves or for their aging parents or family members?
So, one of the areas where I've really noticed people change is if they have been caregivers before, people in that sandwich generation, 40s, 50s, if they have had to take care of parents before, and especially if that involved a 2-story house,
Yeah,
guess what they're buying next time around,
single
right?
story.
They have learned. Experience is one of those things that really teaches you the value of planning ahead for these, thinking about like what that's going to look like later on. So of course, my activist in me says, as soon as you buy your first house, we should be talking to like our newlyweds about how important it is. Okay, they probably aren't listening unless they're thinking rationally about, hey, look, baby strollers, if I have twins trying to get in the house, right, that's important. But definitely in those 40s and 50s,
Okay.
looking to see, what if my parents come to live with me? I mean, you don't have to be the recipient of an easy to live in house. It can be also just that you want to have other people come and stay with you as well.
So
So
you're doing those changes.
you're making those changes. And, one of my big advocacy points is that people think about those changes as being what they see at Olive Garden bathrooms, right? Like you're going like, I am not putting those ugly grab bars in my bathroom. And why would I even think about creating a space that looks like this? And the problem is there's no role models. People don't realize that what you see at Home Depot is not what's out there. There are so
Really?
many beautiful, gorgeous designs that you would be happy to put into your spaces. And in fact, I've had this feedback many times where people have walked into a bathroom I've created and they're like, where are the grab bars? And I'm like,
Really?
well, you're looking at, yeah, because these days everything is multifunctional. You can buy a grab bar towel bar, grab bar toilet paper holder,
Oh,
grab bar like corner shelf. I mean, you don't need to be
make it look
shouting
ugly.
that this is a space for that. And really, there are a lot of stories out there that can really show you that everybody benefits from this. I mean, I have a friend who knocked herself out from blow drying her hair upside down because you have your head upside down and she had an inner ear problem. So she knocked herself out, woke up on the floor, right? And of course, what was she trying to do? Reach out and grab at the wall for something to hold on to. I mean,
Right.
and even fit people, there was an astronaut, I can't think of who it was now, but he was in his 40s and had slipped coming out of the shower. Same concept, right? He got a head injury. I have a friend who with a toddler that slipped in the bathroom, right? They're wiggly and they jump around in the soap and bubbles, and then they slip and they hit their head on the tub
I know.
faucet thing, and off they go to the ER. So
And this was my
grab
fear.
bars. It helps everybody. It helps everybody make their life safer. And in terms of grab bars, beautiful grab bars exist. I tell people, think about grab bars like you would a safety belt in your car. I mean, why would you even let your child get into a car if a safety belt could save their life? And
Right.
why would you even think about getting into a shower if that's something that could prevent a fall, right? It makes no sense.
Okay, this is new thinking. This is blowing my mind. I was not prepared. I was not expecting you to blow my mind today. So now I'm thinking about the house we just bought in Puerto Rico, and I'm thinking because my husband's about to turn 60, and I'm thinking, oh wow, we really missed an opportunity there. But luckily, it's all open space. It's all open space, so there's no honeycombs, nothing that seems to me like it couldn't be amended in due time. So before I hit record, you were talking about how everyone is coin operated. I say everyone has their price. Let's talk about your mindset about this being a cost savings opportunity.
Absolutely. So if you look at just structural, if you are making those changes while you're doing those routine remodels, you're saving a whole bunch of money because that wall is down. You're putting in the things that you need. You're thinking ahead and, making the floors nice and flat.
Okay.
From a money saving point of view with your health, you are saving tons of money by staying active and staying socially, engaged as well, right? For your brain, that cognitive health. Because you're saving money on caregivers, you're saving money on expensive memory care. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about the cost these days, but most care facilities, they're going like seven to $10,000 a month for memory care. And memory care dementias are super on the rise because exercise is something that can also help with it. But there's an entire generation where exercise to them meant calisthenics and fast food and right, like some habits that we in a next generation can do better with, and we
Mm,
can maintain better brain health and consider all those I don't know, forward deposits to be able to not have to have a huge withdrawal later.
yeah. There's that saying, you can either have the pain of regret or the pain of disappointment. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret, something like that.
And you know what? That is a conversation I do have with clients too, which is, listen, what's the reality? Okay, like we can, of course, like in a perfect world, gold standard, everyone's exercising, they're eating organic food, and they are, thinking about the remodels in their home. Okay, but what's the reality? We are all human, but
Yeah.
and so some people are just not capable of doing that, and that's okay, because as long as you save for that piece, it's okay. Like, but you are making an active decision that I hate exercise. I'm okay with like some muscle loss. I'm okay with paying like, people to come in and dress me and bathe me and manage all those things. That's a decision. And so, and it's the same decision tree as grab bars or not, or equipment or not, or whatever. So it's about choice. You're making choices by choosing what you're doing 20 years prior to retiring, because those are the consequences you're going to reap after.
Wow. I really feel like you must have a huge prefrontal lobe. Like you're most people don't think 20 years forward unless they're 40 and realize they have nothing saved for retirement. So this is impressive. Let's talk about what I see on the screen in front of me. For those of you who are listening,
Ooh,
on her Zoom screen, it says at the top, evolving homes. So that's who we're talking to. She says home modification, lifestyle mentoring. I get those two. Physical fitness, very clear, and then remote monitoring. This one of these things
yes.
is not like the other. Tell
One
me
of these
about
things not
this.
like the other. So these are my cornerstones. This is what I imagine when I look at a house and I'm thinking, look, what are the things for successful aging in place? I'm looking at environment, that making sure that you don't have trip hazards, right? Like, I'm not against rugs. I just want to see that there are no rugs in your path of travel. I want to, that physical fitness part we talked about, right? Staying healthy, staying strong, the lifestyle part. It's not aging in place if you're in and out of the hospital, right? If you're not taking your meds on time because you're sleeping in a weird time, or you are not drinking enough water, so you're getting urinary tract infections. These are not successful aging in place. And then the last issue about aging in place is, it's not aging in place if you are like not seeing anybody all day. You're socially isolated. So this is, remote monitoring is technology. It's looking at, like, did that person get up this morning? Are they still stuck on the toilet after 8 hours? Which, these are all real stories, right? I mean, these are all people that have
Oh, wow.
called me and said, listen, like, I fell upstairs and nobody found me for 4 days. And, we had to rip up the carpet and everything up there because, I was up there. And think about their mindset, right? The helplessness that you feel, because I broke my hip on the way down and couldn't get help and nobody was around. And, people don't even think to check upstairs. They just figure, oh, you're at the gym, because that's what you would normally do, right? Because you go to the gym 3 days a week, but you never know, emergencies happen. So you can't be this island of your home living alone without having access to the outside world. And luckily, that's what technology is doing for all of us post COVID, right? We all know that you can reach people by Zoom. And these days, technology specific to aging, it has a term. It's called age tech. And age tech is the
Hmm.
fastest growing area of development to solve a lot of these problems. So everything from social isolation to pattern tracking. You can, I know, like, of a company where you literally just plug in this thing and you have these waves going around in your house, and as soon as you get up and you get into your living room, you disrupt those waves. Well, an alert just went off to your daughter to say, oh, mom's up, she's in the living room, there she goes, right? um
Oh,
or, I
wow.
mean, and the technologies that people are developing are crazy. I know another one that's a
Is that what
military.
pattern tracking is?
Well, pattern tracking can be predictive, where I know what happens when you fall, and I see that you're doing that pattern. Therefore, I'm predicting that you could fall.
Oh, they must
That's
have
a
that on the Apple Watch.
They have some of that's the gait one. That's the gait step length that they're trying
Oh,
to track, because step length is associated with falls as well, but it's also associated with dementias. So when your gait gets shorter and shorter and you start getting more shuffly, it could be indicative of Parkinson's, of any of the neurological things. It could be just weakness, and even things like hand strength is indicative that those are correlated to falls as well. So your grip strength is your measure of your overall body. So, I think what I'm really saying with remote monitoring is that you need a way, even for like your docs, to be able to get information if you're not driving there, right? Like virtual visits, but you also need socialization. It's a way to, it's using technology to be able to compensate maybe for like a lack of caregiver, maybe a lack of strength, a lack of driving, I don't know, like access. It
Okay.
solves a lot of those problems. So those are my four areas where I say, look, if you're not, if you're going to think about nothing else, really consider these areas and think about like what you can do to make that a little bit better. It increases your odds of being able to age in place.
Okay, wow. Okay, so who's your ideal client?
Well, I'll tell you, I have three buckets. The
Okay.
clients who kind of come to me fall into three buckets. It's usually those ones that are sudden emergent needs. Somebody fell and everybody is freaking out because
Yeah.
prior to that, totally fine, right? Then you get your neurodegenerative, so I'm a Parkinson's specialist. You get those ones. But my ideal clients are those proactive aging adults. And do you know what's really funny? Those fall into like two primary categories, dentists and dentists and lawyers. And why do you think that is?
Because they fall and knock their teeth out and because they don't want to get sued.
Because they know how expensive it is if you delay care, right? What happens if you're like, oh, I don't feel like going to the dentist for that cavity. What a pain in the neck, right? And then the next thing you know, you're at the endodontist, which is about 10 times as much. These guys know that if you kick this can down the road, you're going to be paying for it later. So they're like, okay, look, let's talk. I know the value of your
I'm going to do
services
all the
because
things.
I'll do it, right? Same with lawyers. They know what happens. Don't avoid situations. If you avoid it, you will pay twice as much later.
Wow. Um, okay, and so tell me, so sorry, but I don't really know the difference between an occupational therapist and a physical therapist. What
Absolutely.
does that mean and how does that contribute to what you do?
Yeah. Easy thing. So most people have experience with physical therapy because they tore a muscle, hurt something, right? Physical therapy tends to be a lot more bone and muscle. Occupational therapy is more holistic. We're backing up from the situation and looking at how do you function in your spaces. So yes, it's about your motion, but it's more about how does that motion affect what you're doing. So we define occupational therapy in two categories. One is self-care. So can you dress yourself, bathe yourself? Can you like take care of yourself? Can you get in and out of the bed, up and down from the toilet, in and out of the shower? Can you bathe
Mhm.
yourself, right? But then there's another section of activities of daily living, which are, can you take care of your house? Can you cook? Can you clean? Can you do laundry?
Mm,
And then think about the things that you have to do outside the house, right? That those groceries didn't just appear magically in your
no.
fridge. You had to drive there. You had to use your credit card. So financial understanding of this, balancing all of those aspects of it. You had to maybe mow your lawn, bring in dog food, like organize the HVAC guy. So all of those things fall into occupational therapy, but as well as caregiving. Who are your caregivers? What are the biomechanics behind that? Can we make sure that the caregiver doesn't hurt themselves? Because if that caregiver is out, who's taking care of you? Now, maybe you
Right.
are going to a home or some short-term rehab that is going to cost you a lot of money in the end. So if I was to try to sum it up, it's really that OT is very much an art and a science, but looking at the whole person and how do we function and what's important to us. Because what's important to you may not be important to me. Cooking is not necessarily important to somebody who's been a homemaker for 40 years. She may be like, no thanks, I'm out, right? I'm not doing
Did
this
that.
anymore, right? Been there, done that. Whereas, I love to eat, so that means I love to cook. So cooking as an activity and hobby is important to me. So
Yeah.
we as OTs try to look and personalize what is it that makes you you, what's important to keep in your life, and how can I make that happen? So I'm a professional problem solver. That's what my husband is a teacher, so really easy for people to understand. And when people would ask him, what does your wife do? And I said, let's just tell him I'm a professional problem solver because that's legitimately what I do. Because there's no one answer. There really isn't. It really depends on the mix of the person, their preferences, their even the chapter they are in their life. You ask the same question when you were 20, it's different than when you're 40, when you're 60, when you're 80. Your
Right.
priorities change. So
It's funny because I tell my team that we're professional problem solvers, so we have something in common.
Well, and I really do think that anybody in finance and anybody in healthcare doing what I do are the same kind of brain, because we're both trying to bring people to a goal in the future that they can't see yet. We're trying to just walk them through those steps to think like, how do I prepare for
Keeping
that?
that goal front of mind. You're right.
Right, right. And and you asked me before about like, well, when do you start thinking about this? And I sometimes throw it back to other people and I say, well, like, did you start saving for college when your kid was 16? No, right? You started because and why? Because it's expensive. It costs a lot of money, and people don't recognize that one, they don't recognize that Medicare is not paying for this, and they don't recognize how expensive care is until they start to look for it. And it's a serious shock to them. And I tell them, you need 20 solid working years to be saving up for that. There's a reason that they sign you up for a Roth IRA or an IRA when you when you get your first job, right? But beyond that, right, care in general, cost of care has gone up so tremendously that I just don't think that is enough either. I really think that you want to be making a purposeful decision about what your retirement looks like and understanding what those costs are. Like, can I afford that really cool walk-in tub? And is that important to me? Right? So unless you know what your options are, how will you know how much to save? And you won't know what your options are unless you're willing to be brave and look at yourself, what your future self is going to want then, and make
Right.
those decisions.
Well, this is really empowering. Let me ask you a question, and maybe you don't have an answer for it, but is there a decision tree or a set of situations, set of conditions, someone comes to you or a client that you've worked with sort of devolves or doesn't improve, gets worse in terms of their physical abilities, at which point you say, it's actually now time that you need either in-home care or to leave your home and go to a different place to live?
Yeah. And I 100% would never tell somebody it's staying at home, right? And I even have a service called Age in Place or Find a New Space. It's not the perfect environment for everybody. And
Right.
generally, the people who are able to successfully age in place at where the cost is not astronomical are the ones who have been proactively healthy, and they have put in the time and energy to declutter their spaces so it's nice and open, and they
Yeah.
put in the work to remodel adequately. The ones where I just don't think it may be worth it is if they have significant medical conditions. So
Right.
if they are needing a lot of nursing care because maybe it's wound care, maybe it's like COPD or something where they can't improve with that, I definitely will say you need to consider, either maybe bringing somebody in 4 hours a week to take care of those responsibilities, and then keep adjusting as you get older and decide, okay, now it's time to go. So it's not a
Okay.
finite decision like I'm going to age in place. I know the AARP say like, oh yeah, 9 out of 10 are going to do this. Well, let's talk realism right now.
Yeah,
Okay. Like
that's not
nine out of
how it
10
turns
want it.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
And they also have research that says, yes, that's true, but only 15% have done anything about it. So what do you think the chances are that 90% are actually going to make it to the end of that rainbow? I don't think so. Because if you haven't done it, there will come a time where that break even point is not worth it, or it's just too much of a struggle. Like, not every wife or husband is built to be a caregiver. And it's unfair to think that that is your backup plan. Like, your backup
Right.
plan is, I'm going to stay home and she's going to cook all the meals and you know
Right.
and
Wipe
take
my
care of
rear end.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, I didn't sign up for that for 20 to 30, 40 years or whatever, right? I mean,
Right.
I think it's a dynamic process, and it's one of those, you think about it every year. But if you can plan ahead for both the best case scenario and worst case scenario, because you've gone and you've identified those backup plans and visited facility or communities, and how much do they cost, what are they like, when I walked in there, did I feel like I was at home, or I was like, oh man, these guys are there's too much exercise going on in here for me. Like, I need a bridge place and a place for Long Island iced teas at 10 a.m. on Sunday, right? Like, you've got to find your people, and every community is totally different, and working with advisors, like local people who understand the personalities of each of those, that will help you get closer. And I just tell people, look, you're not signing up a rental agreement to say you're going in there. You're just putting it in a folder of your backup plans, just like your will, just like anything else. And you're saying like,
Right.
if we get to, this trigger point, it gets to be this amount of money for care or whatever. Um, Here's my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And some people will call that a survivor plan. They'll say that like when my spouse, when whichever one of us passes away, the plan is that the other one will enter one of these facilities so that they aren't lonely and that they have the support that they need. And that's a
Hmm.
plan, right? It's a plan, and it's different for everybody, and it just requires the mental space to take those steps towards it and make sure that you are looking at all the pieces, potential pieces that might be important to you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're consulting on the spectrum and that you're open to all those outcomes. I do know sometimes people tell me I will not leave my home. And they remind me of the guy who like refuses to vacate and there's a wildfire taking over the whole town. You know what I mean? And it's like, what
Yes.
are you proving here? Because you're just making the lives miserable of the people who love you.
You are.
Um,
And having a plan actually makes everybody calm down around you. Like I tell people that all the time, especially with technology. I mean, if somebody is refusing technology, but their daughter is calling and you don't pick up the phone and she's like jumping in her car thinking the worst case scenario for the 10-minute
yeah,
drive over, right? She's not happy. And you're not happy because you're not getting the freedom you want. So
right.
technology and those kinds of things too can give you that freedom that you want to be able to live your life how you want it to.
Where can people find you on the internet? All the things that you do?
I am at evolvinghomes.com, and I have lots of free resources on there, blogs, webinars, and things that I've done that people can just like listen and just start to immerse yourself into it. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I think this is a something that people have never thought about, so it can be very overwhelming. I just tell people you just take little bites of it, and if it's
Right.
scary, you go into it and you do that exposure therapy thing, and you run away and you don't look at it for like 4 more weeks, and you come back and then you try it again and have that
Well,
conversation with your kids, right?
it is akin to when you were 25 years old, you had your first job, they signed you up for the 401k and you were like, "Okay, I can put $2,000 in there this year," right? And that's how you start. And you
That's how you
had,
start.
you amortize that cost over many years, and when you arrive there, you're more prepared than you could have otherwise been. Thank you so much for coming on Love Your Money. I do have one remaining question for you, and that is if your money were writing you a love note, what would it be thanking you or complimenting you for?
I think it would be so happy that I had realistic expectations of how it could help me, that it could give me the power to not be stressed if I have a future preparation.
Mhm.
If I just thoughtlessly spent my money willy-nilly and then I found myself in a situation, it wouldn't have any resources to help me. So I think they would be very happy to say, thank you so much for remembering that, like, we're here to protect you and
Mm.
that you respected that and you sacrificed and put in the effort to, not overspend and keep yourself fit and, you know, sacrificed, like said no to the ice cream and yes to the vegetables. You made those sacrifices for me so that I could protect you later on if you had an emergency or something unexpected happened.
Wow, you really do think differently than most people, Carol. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really inspired, and I want to talk to many of my clients about this now. Thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.